As you know, Governor Brownback signed a proclamation making this November Adoption Month in our state of Kansas. Right now, there are about 900 children available for adoption in our state. Adoptions through the state are free, legally secure, and families are eligible for subsidies. It's a great and simple process if you can work with us. Other assistance includes free college tuition for those adopted after age 16, and also free health care for adoptive children through our state Medicaid program. Now, the backgrounds of our children that are available for adoption are varied. Some are older, some may have special circumstances such as physical or mental disabilities, or maybe part of a sibling group that we want to try to stick together to maintain those bonds. Now, we are here today to announce our new targeted adoption initiative. SRS will be issuing a request for proposal to obtain competitive responses from vendors to provide targeted adoption recruitment for the state of Kansas. Now, this initiative will use $300,000 to start a statewide marketing campaign and to create innovative recruitment strategies to promote the adoption of children in state care in Kansas who do not yet have an adoptive family identified. The children and youth who will be targeted in our initiative are registered on the Kansas Adoption website, which is www.adoptkskids.org. That's www.adoptkskids.org. Now, this initiative will contribute to SRS's goal of increasing the number of state adoptions to 800 for fiscal year 12. Last fiscal year, we had 761 adoptions in the state, so we're looking at about a 6 to 7% increase. And on November 19th, a number of Kansas court jurisdictions will be hosting adoption ceremonies, and we should be having over 100 adoptions on that one date. 100. That's fantastic. I know I'm already scheduled to attend some events in Johnson County and Wyandotte County to have a great time with the families and the children there. Now, the money being used to fund the initiative is coming from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services at the Administration for Children and Families, which is my old stomping ground from 2001 and 2005, and we're excited to be working with them. Now, here are some statistics about adoption and foster care in Kansas. Right now, there are 5,200 children in our foster care system, and of these, about 900 of these children are awaiting adoption. Now, of these 900, about 400 children do not have an adoptive family identified. They don't have a family member or a family they're living with. So these 400 children really are alone, and they need our love and attention, and that's what this initiative is aimed at. So in order to show what our initiative is about, the governor, First Lady Mary Brownback, an adoptive sibling group, and myself did a PSA a couple weeks ago, and we're going to be putting this on the TV networks, on our website, and the rest, so people really can see that Governor Brownback and SRS are fully committed to making sure that all of our children have permanent, loving homes. And one thing we got to remember is like the puppy syndrome. Everybody wants to adopt the newborn with no problems. Nobody wants to adopt the 13-year-old who's been physically abused or sexually abused or neglected. But these kids need our love more than anybody else. And I know we have Kansas families out there who want to adopt these children. As you look at the families and children right here, people can adopt any kids, and we are willing to work with them. Again, it's free, it's legally secure, and we can provide financial subsidy as well as a Medicaid card. Let's give a round of applause for these families, adoptive families. Aren't they beautiful? I'd like to introduce right now Jonatahn Schumm and his wife Allison. They have 8 children, 5 of whom were adopted as a sibling group. Let's give them a round of applause.
Good morning, everybody. I do appreciate the chance to be here at the Kansas Children's Discovery Center. I can't say enough that they opened the facility for us. We do appreciate it. And I also want to thank all of you here that have been touched by adoption, that have made adoption possible, or helped somebody with adoption. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself and our family. Our family's adoption journey began about 29 years ago. Actually, November, 29 years ago. So this month in Casper, Wyoming. My father-in-law, John Rao, was waiting in a blizzard when he got a call that the baby girl that he and his wife were going to adopt had been born. Now, even though it was snowing, back then, 29 years ago, he wasn't able to go see the child that was going to become their daughter. He had to drive back through the snowstorm to pick up his wife so that they could both be there, because the idea of a guy picking up a baby at that time was just ludicrous. But about 15 years after that, my wife was part of her family as they adopted again a little girl named Michelle. Michelle was about 8 years old, and one of those children that it's a bit harder to adopt that we just heard about. Now, when she came up for adoption, she was part of a larger sibling group. They actually had to split up the sibling group so that somebody would be more adoptable. And of course, since she was the youngest girl, she was adoptable. Her older brothers, not quite so much. So when my wife and I decided to adopt, that was one thing that was heavy on Allison's mind. She did not want to see another sibling group split up, having seen the effects of it herself. We knew we wanted to be a home that would keep a sibling group together, not separate them. And in July of 2006, after we'd been doing foster care for about 6 months, a group of 4 children came to live in our home. My oldest, Nicole, was 10 at the time, and Eliza was 7, Emmanuel was 6, and then Jaquel was all of 10 months old. There were a lot of challenges as foster care progressed. I'm not here to tell you that foster care and adoption are easy by any means. In July of 2006, when they came to live with us, we were living in Alma, Kansas. On my first day that I went back to work after we took a day off to welcome the kids in, my oldest 3, Nicole, Emmanuel, and Eliza, asked if they could play outside. Those of you that know Alma know it's a pretty safe town. You wouldn't think of much trouble there. Well, they decided that perhaps it might be fun to redecorate the school building that was next to us with some of the gravel from the parking lot. And about 12 broken window panes later, I got a call from my wife. My children had left a pile of rocks on our doorstep, and it didn't take much deductive work for the friendly Alma police force to figure out just who was responsible. So you can imagine how that call went. It was quite a bit of a gut check for us as parents, because we'd had them in our home for just a few days at that point to decide whether we could handle them, especially being older kids. We do want to especially thank KCSL and especially KVC for their help in that specific situation and many situations along the way. In October of 2006, we had our first biological child. Her name is Mercy. At that time, we were encouraged to put our older children into respite care to welcome the new baby in and not cause problems, but that really wasn't the message we wanted to send to our kids. So we wanted them to know that they were a part of our family either until they were reunited with their biological family or whether they became a permanent part of our family. We really didn't want any more sense of rejection in their lives. In short, from July to October of 2006, it was a time period of about 3 months. We went from a foster family who usually had 1 to 3 kids at a time to a house with 5 children. It was time for a minivan. There were a lot of other changes to keep up with, as you can imagine. Cooking, laundry, the cleaning went up dramatically, but as my wife Allison will tell you, it's been worth every smile and every tear. In December of 2006, Allison got a call asking if we would be willing to do foster care for our kid's youngest sister, Angel. She'd gone into the foster care system at the same time, but being a baby was split off from the older kids. So she's only 3 months older than Mercy, but we prayed about it. It was clear to us that if we set out to adopt a sibling group, then we should be able to foster a sibling group the same way. We were told at that time that she was possibly autistic and very likely deaf, but we were able to feel confident that we had the support system and the resources available to work with us and to work through it as we needed to. So 5 months into our journey, it's now December 2006, we have 6 children, and suddenly that 7-seat minivan we just bought didn't quite cut it. So, but back to Angel, we had several doctor's visits and determined to put tubes into her ears. And praise the Lord, many of the suspected autism and deafness symptoms disappeared once the fluid drained out. We were so thankful. But Tark was also there to help Angel with her development and to guide us towards her hitting her normal childhood milestones. I'm definitely not here to sugarcoat adoption. It sometimes leads to hard choices, especially with older kids. Due to the ethnic makeup of Alma, there came a point where we realized that our oldest, Nicole, being different from 95% of the other kids in town, and her school district was helping to bolster her reputation as a troublemaker. Now, part of that was her own fault. She was always ready to defend her biological mother against schoolyard taunts, and I hate to admit it, but as a dad, I'm proud to say that usually she won those fights. But she did begin to grow up and change inwardly, and we realized that she needed a fresh start away from the school district where she wouldn't stand out and she wouldn't be carrying past baggage. That and our need for more bedroom space to comply with foster care regulations led us to relocate from Alma to Topeka. In August 2007, we found out we were expecting a second biological child, and shortly after this, we were asked if we'd be willing to adopt Nicole, Eliza, Emmanuel, Jaquel, and Angel. It was a question we'd been waiting for 2 years for. We felt like they were our children. We never wanted them to have to stay in foster care a minute longer than necessary, whether it meant them going back to their biological parents or being brought into a forever family. Isaiah was born in April of 2008, and in July of 2008, just 3 days shy of them being in our home for 2 years, the adoption was finalized by Judge Mitchell and the fine folks at the district court here in Topeka. Our family's since grown to 8 children with the addition of Kirsten, but really it's been such a joy to see this rather strange group of 10 people become a functioning and loving family. We couldn't have done it without God and the family and friends that He provided and the support that they provided. We had to do a lot of untraining and retraining, not only of the kids, but of ourselves, but it is possible. It takes love, prayer, self-discipline, a bit of creativity, a lot of time, and a lot of readjustment of expectations and relearning what a normal family looks like. But when kids are in foster care, there's a constant sense of rejection. They can't be with their old family, and it seems like no new family wants them, especially if they've been in foster care for a while. There's so much anger and hurt that sometimes that's all that the prospective adoptive families see. I'd like to emphasize there is a ton of support out there for adoptive families. You don't ever have to think that you'll face all of this alone. Our support system started with our family, with my wife's parents, John and Diane Rao, with my parents, Walter and Kim Schumm. We can't ever thank them enough for their support and their full acceptance of our children as their grandchildren. We have had the privilege of working with great agencies here in Kansas, SRS, TARC, KCSL, KVC, the Farm, all of which have provided countless hours of support and caring social workers who want nothing more than to help all Kansas children succeed. Today is truly a day to celebrate the great work that they do, but so much is left to be done, and so many kids are still waiting. Last night, my wife and I were online, adoptkansaskids.org, and we looked over the children still waiting for adoption, and we noticed there were still kids from when my wife and I started our journey 6 years ago. Their pictures are still up on the board. Their stories are still up there, only the pictures have been updated. They're still waiting for a family to call their own, and there is a great need out there. So, as a personal challenge, if you would look at your house, your family, and your heart, is there room for you to give a child the love that he or she deserves? You don't have to be perfect or more than human. I'm certainly not, although I suspect my wife might be. There are great agencies like SRS, KVC, KCSL, TFI that are waiting to hear from you, to provide you training and support, and to help you bring the child that will change you and your family forever into your home. In closing, many thanks to my wife Allison for being the amazing woman that she is and a great mother to all my children. And to all of you, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spread the message that adoption can be hard, wonderful, and worth every tear and every prayer. Please consider whether you would be willing to change a child's life. I have every confidence that you are able. Thank you so much.
All I can say is right here is one of the most beautiful things in the entire world. If there's anything more beautiful, I'm not sure what it is. And like I said, in addition to the website at SRS, we updated our own website. So every time you open up to it, you'll see a picture of a child who's available for adoption. This is a heartfelt cause for the governor, for the First Lady, for myself, and for everybody here. And we want to work with everybody here, whether you're in the media, whether you're a family and considering adoption, or just want to help. We want to partner with you so every kid gets a forever family.